And if, Chris, would you care to lead us in a word of prayer to start off, please?
Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this another day you bless us with. We can come and worship you. We now enter into a period of Bible study. We pray, Father, that as we do so, that we can put away the things of the world and focus on your word. We pray that you'll bless Dusty and each of the teachers here today and give them a good recollection of what they prepared. Help us as students to listen in view of eternity. We pray that you continue to bless us, keep us safe, forgive us when we fail thee. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for adding me to that, because some of the lesson today is over prayer, and I guess because I don't feel comfortable teaching these lessons, that in my prayers this morning while I was brushing my teeth, I was looking out the window of our little hay field thinking, I hope that if you need a book, Barry's waving at me, so raise your hand, Barry will bring you a book by. It's lesson 10 when you turn to it, page 113. But so I was brushing my teeth, and I've got one of them Sonic Care toothbrushes. I don't know if you've ever seen one, the electric toothbrushes. It vibrates in your mouth. And I'm looking out the hayfield, and all of a sudden that sucker jumps out of my mouth, and I do like this, trying to catch it with my hand. Of course, then it puts toothpaste all over my shirt at 8:45 this morning when I'm supposed to be headed out the door coming here anyway. So in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, he's telling you, big boy, you don't need to be doing this. You need to stay home. But either way, I'm going to try and do the best I can. And I encourage your comments. I don't know if I can make this lesson last long enough or not. So please feel free to interject anytime. You can ask questions, but I don't know if I can answer it. But I'll look at somebody else and see if they'll answer it for you. So let me start off, though. There's not a whole lot of verses. I'm going to read. We're in Mark 14, 32 through 50. And you can read in your Bible, or you can read out of the book. Then they came to a place which was named Gethsemane. That didn't come out right. Gethsemane. And he said to his disciples, sit here while I pray. And he took Peter, James, and John with him, and he began to be troubled and deeply distressed. Then he said unto them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch. He went a little farther and fell on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, Abba, Father, for all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will. Then he came and found them sleeping, and said to Peter, Simon, are you sleeping? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Again he went away and prayed, and spoke the same words. And when he returned, he found them asleep again. For their eyes were heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. Then he came the third time, and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? It is enough. The hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. And immediately, while he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and scribes and elders. Now his betrayer had given them a signal, saying, whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize him and lead him away safely. As soon as he had come, immediately he went up to him and said to him, Rabbi, Rabbi, and kissed him. Then they laid their hands on him and took him. And one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus answered and said to them, have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to take me? I was daily with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me, but the scriptures must be fulfilled. Then they all forsook him and fled. So whenever I was going through here and reading this, I looked at some of the introduction, and I highlighted some of it, and I've got some questions. And so what I've decided is, after I tell you a few things about this introduction, I just want to take the scriptures and try to take what I've learned from what I've read in the companion I have here and what I looked up, and try to explain this as best I can. But one of the most important things it's talking about in this is it's talking about prayers. In 1 Peter 3:12, it says, "The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers." And then in James 5:16, "The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much." And Jesus prayed a lot, especially before big decisions. In Luke 6:12, before he was selecting his apostles, you can read that he was praying. So the reason I bring all that up is he goes out to pray because there is something coming at him. And he takes 3 people with him. He takes Peter, James, and John. And in my mind, now I may be wrong, so feel free, like I said, anytime to interject, but he's in a fleshly body on this earth, Jesus is. And he takes 3 people with him. So in my mind, that's kind of a symbolic thing, because when we accept Jesus and we're baptized and we walk this earth the rest of our life, we have God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit with us. So I don't know if that 3, but in my mind, that's something I try to think about and symbolize and associate things. So, but at the same time, he's also taken, I think, what would be 3 of his best friends. Like if I had something going on, it's like when my grandmother or grandfather passed away, there was 2 or 3 I called and said, "Hey, you need to know this." I called Brad, Mike, and Troy. We'll be there. We're there for you. We'll pray for you. We'll hold you. We'll hug you. We'll let you cry on our shoulders. Whatever you need to do, we're there for you. So I feel like he's taken these 3 with him as a support system. And he walks away. He tells you, "Stay here." And so he walks up, it says he walks forward away from them a little bit, and he drops down, he starts praying. Well, while he's praying, they fall asleep. And I don't know if it was disgust or if it's just because he knows what's coming and he wants you to pray for him, or if he's wanting you to watch his back, worrying about the mob coming after him, because he knows it's coming. And while he's praying, he says, "Abba, Father, for all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me." So when he says, "Take this cup away from me," he's not talking about the Passover, the cup that we drink on Sundays. He's talking about this burden. He knows that he's about to be sacrificed unjustly. And he's in the fleshly body, so he can still feel pain. He still hurts. So he's saying, he's showing his fear. So take this away from me. But at the same time, he turns around and he says, "Nevertheless," and this is where the prayer comes in. It's important as well. It's not what I will, but what you will. So he's telling his father, "I don't want this pain. Can you please take it away from me?" But he also turns and says, "It's not my decision. It's what you tell me needs to be done. That's what I'm going to do. It's your will, not mine." So he's still giving in. He's still doing what's being told. And if you read scriptures, all throughout the Bible and all different scriptures, it mentions doing the will of the Father. We have commandments. We have the plan of salvation, the steps we have to follow. And it's not up to Jerry to tell me. It's up to me to listen and to get something out of the lesson and to learn and then to come forward and make that confession myself. He can't make the confession for me or Barry or anybody else out here. I have to do that myself. So it's a big burden, but he's still saying, "I'll do it. Whatever you will, it's not what I will." And feel free at any time, like I said, to jump in and if you have any comments, because I'm going to struggle to get this lesson very long. So he goes back, and I don't know if the symbol, to me it's symbolic as well, because he does this 3 times. But after the first time when he comes back, he found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, and this is what's another thing that was interesting to me, he called him Simon. Now, if you look up the meaning of Peter, you know, all of our names have meanings. Peter's is rock. And at different times you can read in different places where Peter was his rock. He was his, well, just his strong, you know, backbone support system. But at this time, he wasn't. So he called him by his given name of Simon. Simon, are you sleeping? Could you not watch 1 hour? And so, in my mind, when I'm thinking this, all right, you've let me down. You're supposed to be my rock, but if you're not going to be my rock, then I'm calling you Simon. You know, and it was different places, but it could have been a scornful decision, or it could just been an honest decision because I know what's coming, and it could be some hurt in it too. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts?
I think this night, and maybe when he got mad at the temple, we see more of Jesus' humanity than any other action in the Bible. And we would have been afraid just like he was, because he knew the pain was coming. But I think what you said is right. He felt a little betrayed by the apostles, because here he is worried to death. Now not maybe, there's no doubt, they didn't understand what was going on. But he had to feel they let him down.
That's what I would think too. I mean, like I said, I mean, you can pull the hair on your arm, you'll feel some pain, and you know, he was flesh and blood like we are. Now, he knew everything, and he came here for a reason, but he still felt the pain, and I think, again, let me back away. It's my personal thought, but I mean, I would think that his feelings could still be hurt the same as my feelings are hurt if my daughter looked at me and said, I hate you. You know, whether she meant it or whether she didn't, it still hurts, and all of you as parents have, I'm sure, went through times when your children have hurt you. So we're all children of God. So
these are, I mean, looking at the humanistic side, these are his 3 closest friends. These are his guys.
Yeah.
Okay? And Jesus knows something's coming. He even knows the mob's coming. He may or may not know the exact time, but you know, he's saying, okay, I'm going to pray, you know, this way, okay, I'm going to go pray, but you watch. Okay, there's a reason he told them to watch, because he needed them to protect him while he prayed. He comes back and they're asleep. Well, they didn't take him seriously, right? So maybe if I tell them again,
right.
You know, let's do this again, you know. And then by the 3rd time, it's kind of like, what's the use?
Yeah.
You know, you aren't getting it, and so they're just not on the, they're not in tune with him spiritually. He wishes they were. He's been with them 3.5 years. They need to be at a better. They're going to be tried too.
Right.
And I think Johnny's right. The humanity of Christ coming forth. I mean, this is. I don't know if you can look at it this way or not, but we always think of God and Christ being on the same page. Okay, right there together. You know, but this, when Christ says, "Not my will, but Thy will," in other words, okay, I'm not really agreeing with this, but I'll obey.
Right.
You know, whatever it is, I will obey what you tell me to do, and that's what we're all asked to do. We're not, and most of the time, we're not going to always agree with the path of righteousness. We wish we would, you know, but we're not going to. But the key is, when does obedience show up? It's when you and God differ, you do what God tells you to do. And this right here is the ultimate example. You know, even Christ, there was a point where he had to obey. And because in all he's tempted as we. He went through everything that we go through. And so this was that point where he had to obey. And he did.
Right.
At a great cost to himself and his physical, pain and suffering and all that stuff that we hold so dear, that we would run as fast as we could if we were probably faced with something like that.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't imagine. And like you mentioned too, his support system, his buddies, I couldn't imagine what it'd feel like if I was one of them and being scorned by him as well. That would bother me. But as you mentioned, yes.
I was going to say, Barry was leading to it as well. Not only his disappointment in them, in his time of need, his support system, falling asleep, whatever.
Yeah.
But Barry said, they're getting ready to be tried as well.
Right.
And I'm not to steal your thunder, but at the end of this, it says they all up and fled.
Right.
All
Right.
left. And he'd already predicted he was going to deny him.
Right.
He says here, watch and pray lest you fall into temptation. He knows what's getting ready to come, and he knows they need to be preparing just like he is.
Right.
And resting the body is not what they need right now.
No, it's
They need to find some respite in the spirit, and they're not.
Right.
And there's some disappointment there, and you're not supporting me right now. But there's also some you're not listening to me.
right. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And one thing I hadn't got to yet, and maybe I should back up. In the companion that comes along with our books, it talks about Gethsemane, and it was a familiar place for Jesus and to stop and to pray, and that comes into effect for later on in other scriptures. But whenever he comes back the second time, obviously they don't know what to say, so he comes back the third time, and he says, "It's enough. The hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hand of sinners." And I can't remember. I've got it. Let's see here. Later on, if you flip through all your the lesson pages, but it is enough. It's there was 2 or 3 different ways it could be looked at according to different people, different authors here. And I'm going to read this to you. It says, interestingly, the word translated, "it is enough," can carry a variety of meanings. Some think Jesus was expressing frustration with the disciples. The term was more commonly used to refer to things that are settled, such as bank accounts. Now, I don't know exactly how that is used, but I do understand things are settled. And it says, Alan Black proposed this as a possible meaning of the term and suggested it be translated, "it is paid," explaining, and this made a little bit of sense. Explaining, he wrote, Jesus is saying that Judas has received his money and the betrayal is at hand. So I don't know that that's right or not, but in my mind, when I try to associate things, I can see where when he says it is enough, that he knows, because he knows what's coming. He knows who's betraying him, and he's letting you know without coming out and saying it that it's done. He's accepted money. I know that I'm being betrayed, and it's on its way. So that's just one possible way. And like I said, I can associate that. Not saying it's right, but I can see where that would come. But anyway, the hour has become, and he says, "Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." And so when I see that in the next scripture, that's why I say it is enough. That makes sense to me that he knows. And immediately while he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude with swords and clubs, came from chief priests and scribes and elders. Now, they came at night, and they came in a group, and they knew where to come because Gethsemane was a familiar place for Jesus to stop and to pray and to teach at and different things. I was found out in this companion. And Judas and the high priest were afraid that if they came during the day, because he talked to so many people, and it says that later on, he'd been with them teaching, but it could end up being a big mob, and they wouldn't be able to get him. I mean, they may be such an uprising, such a standing up. So they came at nighttime, and he brought a group with him, and he told them, he said, Judas said, I will kiss the one who you are to grab, to lead him away. And this is something that was, I don't know, in my mind it stands, how things stand out when you read it. This is one of the things that stands out is, you know it's wrong, so you're going to do it at nighttime to avoid the conflict. And then he comes up and he kisses him. And he says, Rabbi, Rabbi. Now, if you look up the meaning of rabbi right now, it's a Jewish leader. But if you look up the meaning of the word rabbi, not just the actual definition of it, it translates to my master. So he's coming up to Jesus and calls him master, my master, my master, and kisses him only so everybody else can grab a hold of him to take him away. So why, well, I mean, I guess it's, I don't know if you'd call it ironic. Why would you come up to somebody and call them master in order to tell them you've got to go, you're going to be taken? And then, why would you kiss them? That, like to me, whenever I kiss somebody, like say, I mean, I make no joke about it. Every morning I kiss Mia goodbye. It's just my way of saying, I'll see you later. Hopefully everything will be okay. I kiss my kids goodbye. Before my grandparents passed away, I always kissed them. Of course, I never knew when I'd ever see them again. So, why, it's a love thing for me. So why would you want to display love and call somebody master when you know you're setting them up? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? No.
He had to feel guilty about what he was doing. So you just have to believe he was debating back and forth and trying to make himself feel better.
Well, that's kind of what I thought too. That's the reason I wanted to see what other people's opinions, because I don't know. If I knew I was going to betray you, I mean, if I done had the lynch mob in the back saying I'm getting Johnny, I'm just going to walk up to you and say, you're the man, you're done. I don't think I would want to come up and call you master and kiss you, even though I can see the irony of the goodbye kiss. I just don't see how, if you're not contemplating or if you're not troubled inside, why you'd want to do it that way. I mean, I could come up with a lot of other reasons. I could walk up beside you and, or something. But calling you master and kissing you just kind of, that, or it's the other thing I could think of is the ultimate insult. I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, if I was trying to rub it in somebody's face, which, I'm guilty of being a bad person at times, but I could see where, on the opposite, if you're not contemplating, if you're really, like I said, just wanting to get that last little gouge in, twist of the knife in, you're calling them master and kissed them.
He's got something going on in his head, because the last part of that verse, whoever I shall kiss at his feet, take him and lead him away safely.
Right.
Lead him without trouble.
Right.
I mean, knowing what's getting ready to happen to him, I don't think, leading him away without trouble at this moment really is,
No, right.
any consequence.
Right, yeah. That's right. So, I don't know. I mean, and then Jesus being the ultimate teacher. So the mob comes up and start drawing their swords. And what does he do? He's just calm, laid back, and says, sheath your swords, I think is what it says right here. Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs, take me? As one who drew by his sword. No, somewhere, maybe I read it in the companion, that he said, they laid their hands on him once stood by us. I know I had this marked somewhere. One of you stood by, drew his sword, cut off servants' ears, and just said, have you come out against me? Maybe it's in John. Maybe that's, because John has a more vivid account in his books, and maybe that's where I was reading it from. But so after the servant's ears cut off, he tells his men, put your swords up, and he goes with him he didn't want the conflict right now. He knew what was coming, but he didn't want to cause the conflict. And this is something that, I don't know, I wonder if it's another symbolic thing, if it's just something I associate in my mind, but have you come out as against a robber? So they're coming at night, and he's asking them, are you calling me a robber? So when I was thinking about it, I thought, another word for a robber is a thief. And later on, and I've got it wrote down somewhere, I apologize. Somebody could probably tell me, but does it not say when Jesus comes back, he'll be like a thief in the night? So I wonder if that verse can come back to how he was taken. So you took me as a robber or a thief, and you done it at nighttime, so I'll come back as a thief in the night. I wonder if there's any correlation. That's just me thinking out loud. Anybody else have any thought?
They came at him like he was some hardened criminal that was going to be dangerous to catch, and I think his point is you had plenty of time to catch him. There were plenty of opportunities.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right, because it says, I was with you daily. So, like you were saying, you had days. Anytime I'm standing right here, you could have walked in the door, grabbed me, cuffed me, and took me out of here. But instead, you wait until the nighttime. And again, that I do believe, as I was reading, that it's because they didn't want to fight the mob. That it could cause such conflict. It's easier for them to apprehend Jesus at nighttime.
Well, many times they said, you know, and referred to in Scripture, they would have taken him except for the people.
Right.
You know, it goes back to, well, they were scared for themselves. They weren't, you know, they didn't want to appear to not have the authority, you know, to take Jesus. But if you, in a situation like that, when the crowd is with Jesus, you know, right, might makes right. You know, they didn't want to fight that. And Jesus, and I always just looked at it this way, Jesus saying, you're just cowards.
Mm-hmm.
You come at night in the dark, why? Because you're afraid.
Right.
You know, you could have taken me anytime, but because you're afraid, you come at night. You know, and you come as though you need clubs and swords to take me. Have I ever done anything that would make you think that you need to, you know, grab me and lay hands on me like that? He never had. But they were so scared, even when he was by himself with his apostles, they bring clubs and an overwhelming number of people, you know, and they were going to make sure that they got him, I guess. And he's saying, you know, you don't understand.
Yeah. And the worst part, I guess, too, well, I don't know if there is a worse part, but I guess another cut on you, another injury is the last verse here. It says, then they all forsook him and fled. So nobody wanted to stand up and say, let him go. You know, everybody just fled. And so these are the people you've prayed about, you've chosen, and they're supposed to teach your word and be an extension of you, and now they've just tucked tail and run. And I'm not saying I'm not judging them. It's not my place to judge them, but you can still, as you read, you think, one day I've got to stand up. And there's a lot of things I'm going to have to say I'm sorry for, you know. And I hope one day I hear, well done. But at the same time, I'd hate to look in and say, yeah, at his time of need, when it was all coming, I ran. I left you.
Abandonment hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I've really had to. I've been abandoned at work a couple of times, made me mad. I've never been so mad as being abandoned when I was working. You know, but several things. Christ needed to endure that because that's part of being a human, and probably Christ understood it, but you know, it's one of those things which really, really hurts you at your core, especially when they're those that you love and they run.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And sure that it was one of those things that, you know, just like the scourging and everything else, it's one of those things that Christ had to endure because he was the Lamb of God. But you wouldn't want to have to wish it on anybody.
No, absolutely
Who
not.
knows what it did to Peter, James, and John later on? This may have made them stronger when they had to face. You know, one of them was supposedly crucified upside down.
Right.
Maybe it helped them later.
You may be right. I mean, that's another good point. I hadn't even thought of it that way. The one thing, I think I heard the second bell ring, or I don't know if the one thing I would like for you to take out of this is just to remember that Jesus paid the ultimate price for us, but remember that he said, it's not my will, but your will. So if you take anything out of this lesson, just try to remember that it's not what we want to do, it's what God wants us to do. And thank you for your attention and your kind words and help of getting through this lesson.